Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Education Corner podcast. Today we're talking to Mr. Dan Thornburn, headmaster of Edgeborough School, located in Farnham. Keep listening to learn more about Edgeborough School, to hear about the upcoming merge with Charterhouse, the entry points and procedures to Edgeborough, and Dan's experiences as a head. Enjoy!
It's lovely to speak to you today, Dan, and we're very keen to hear how life is at Edgeborough, and there's been quite a lot happening and changes afoot in different areas. So I thought I'd begin by asking you about Edgeborough as a school, and perhaps if you could talk myself and the listeners through the key points of entry to Edgeborough.
Of course, yeah. Thanks, Chloe. Thank you very much for having me on this. It's brilliant to be involved with you again, and I'm really excited to hear about all of your fantastic news. So that's amazing. Yeah, Edgeborough is. It's funny, isn't it? I think until about a year ago, pre-pandemic, it was most schools were pretty standard in their entry points, but with nursery and reception and year three. But if the pandemic taught us anything, it's that things change pretty rapidly and regularly. So actually, at the moment, I don't think I could give you a standard entry point at Edgeborough now. We're doing well. We've got applicants in almost every year group, and in fact, in my time here now, we've had joiners in every year from nursery all the way up to year 8. So the standard points don't change very much, as I say, nursery, reception, and year 3. But I've had joiners in year 6, in year 7, even one in year 8 in my time. So it's a changing market at the moment.
And you go, just for clarity, you obviously begin with your nursery, which is lovely, yeah. And you go right the way through to 13, don't you?
Yeah, all the way up to 13. So year 8, we're lucky in that we're in a buoyant market in this part of Surrey, and we feed a number of 13 plus schools. So yeah, our year 7 and 8 are going strong, which is great.
Do some of the children sit the 11 plus?
Yeah, so we do. I think like most schools around here, a lot of the testing happens in year 6, the 11 plus, and we will lose a few children at the end of year 6 to either local grammar schools or to some of the other independent schools around that take it 11. But as I say, we're lucky that we've sort of got a nice breadth to our top end offering. So we're feeding, among others, obviously Charterhouse, which we'll talk about later, but some other big names, sort of 13 plus schools.
And when is it best for parents, perhaps, who are thinking about getting pregnant or are pregnant? When's the best time to register?
Yeah, I'm certainly not going to scaremonger on this one. It's funny, isn't it? You hear people. I'm not going to say you need to sign up pre-birth in utero for Edgeborough. It's not that sort of school, but it's obviously the more popular we become, and we're now lucky with waiting lists in a number of years. I think registration, when you know you're interested, it is key. The more we see families making that move out of London, which is happening very regularly now, the more important it is for them to get themselves registered quickly, because we're filling up, and it's the hardest conversation actually I found, and I never thought I'd be saying this, is when you are full and families have sort of decided to make the move out to Surrey and said they're moving for Edgeborough, and then we haven't got space. That's never an easy conversation to have. So but we don't put pressure on in terms of when you need to register.
How many children do you tend to take into your nursery and reception?
So we're down at the lower end of the school. We've got 30 in a sort of capacity of 30 in both of our nursery groups, and then we're probably 2 form entry in reception. And again, that's the sort of debate is when you've got lots of interest whether you do expand a little bit. But yeah, we're 2 form entry in reception, and that carries on through year 1 and 2, and then we go to 3 form entry from year 3.
And how would you describe the benefits of attending Edgeborough as compared to other prep schools, perhaps, in your area?
Yeah, I think it's a good question that I get asked a lot, and I never never would assume that Edgeborough is unique and the best school in the world. I would never say that of my school, but some of the things that do make it pretty unique are, and you'll have seen this yourself, we're very lucky to have a beautiful site. You know, it really is a staggeringly beautiful area that we live in, and that creates just a lovely feel in the school. And you know, that setting is amazing. But we're very rounded. We've got massive opportunities, and we're also pretty grounded as well. I use that phrase rounded and grounded quite a lot. You know, we're not, you know, we don't get too fussed up about most things. We try to have the children really being children, getting stuck into stuff, enjoying their childhood, and we're not a stuffy sort of place. So I think we're a very normal, down to earth school in a wonderful setting, and that really does help bring the best out of the children here. And those, as I say, those opportunities that they have are fantastic.
Outdoors learning. Obviously, we've just gone through a pandemic, but what have been your biggest challenges that you faced in your headship at Edgeborough?
It's such a tough one, isn't it? Because I think everyone knows that the pandemic, no matter what walk of life you've been in, the pandemic has been just pretty horrendous all around. And I think being a head running a school in the pandemic has been a massive challenge. And I've spoken to lots of colleagues and heads elsewhere, and I genuinely don't think any head can say that they've enjoyed being a head at the moment. It's, you know, if they are, I mean, they're either superhuman or they're lying. I mean, it has been absolutely relentless, and it has been for the staff and the pupils and the parents too. So we get that. But you know, aside from the pandemic, I suppose probably the biggest challenge when I came here was actually one of just trying to get the name of Edgeborough out there a bit more. You know, there were a few changes to make, but and you know, when you're new to a school, you do want to bring change, but without rocking the boat too much. And I, you know, to be honest, I didn't have to do a huge amount of significant change, but it was more just about getting people in the local area first of all, and then a little bit beyond, to really understand that Edgeborough was a very special place, a really good school that people should be talking about. And so that first year was challenging to sort of get that name out there. And after that, it's just been trying to steadily make change without rocking the boat too much. And then of course pandemic came along and rewrote the rule book altogether.
As a community, how did you come through the pandemic?
Yeah, pretty well. But again, not going to lie, we were really hit quite hard early on. Like a lot of schools, we weren't probably quite ready to go online. Being really honest about it, we didn't have a network manager in place at the time. We hadn't got any sort of significant digital learning platform set up, and we had pretty much 3 weeks to get it up and running and get cracking. So I think our parents would probably say that, you know, the first stages of the initial lockdown, we did our absolute best, but the second time through was a remarkable difference. And you know, just the way, and I think this happened in every school, the way that teachers adapted to what they were doing, and so did the children. You know, there was a really positive feel in adversity as we sort of ploughed our way through things. But it's been a challenge, and I think like most schools now, we're seeing the effects of that. You know, it's lovely to have the children back, and it's lovely to be edging towards normality again. But yeah, there are a lot of children who've struggled, and a lot of those you just wouldn't have guessed. You know, the classic, you know, confident, successful pupils are struggling just as much as those who maybe haven't got as much confidence. And it's hard. It's hard to see in a school that you run that we're probably talking about 2 or 3 times the number of children that needing a bit of extra support, a bit of, you know, counselling or you know, being helped through their anxiety and their stresses and strains at the moment. So yeah, I think we pulled together very well as a community, but it's not been without its challenges. I could do with about 6 months of sleep, I reckon, is what I
And thinking about, I mean, obviously we've just had Mental Health Week, but what did you put in place? It's going to be ongoing, I'm imagining, but what have you put in place from the mental health point of view?
It's a very timely question, because it was Mental Health Week last week, and we're actually in the middle of a wellbeing festival this week. It's our first ever. We've done a whole week of wellbeing initiatives, which has been amazing. And today is a classic example. You won't be able to see behind me. You might be able to hear the wind. It's just the most awful day. And we're outdoor classroom day as well today as part of that wellbeing festival. And in typical British fashion, we've done a picnic outside with gale force winds and driving rain. But no, we've done an awful lot at sort of form level. So lots of the form teachers have been working very closely with children and parents. Over the lockdown period, regular phone calls and Zooms with individuals, and then beyond that, in the sort of recovery period, we've obviously upped our levels of counselling. We're listening to children a lot more. We're taking time out of the curriculum to deal with issues when they arise straight away, rather than I think in the past schools sort of ploughed on through towards their standard things that happen in the calendar, and we've just decided that that there's no point doing the traditional exam week in the same way that we used to do it when it's just going to cause stress and strain. So we've adjusted that sort of thing. We'll still assess, we'll still do some exams, but we won't do it in quite
in a more formal
way than that we would have done 18 months ago, 24 months ago. So lots of adjustments, but again ongoing, regularly looking at the levels of children that need support and deciding whether we need to invest in more counselling or more training for staff. Done a lot of that recently, so lots going on to support that.
I can imagine. And have Parsnip and Humphrey been
they've been inundated. They were part of this wellbeing festival, so wellbeing walks with Humphrey and Parsnip, and we've got a load of other dogs on site as well now. So they've had lots.
I remember, was it a music lesson we walked into once, and there was a dog underneath?
We've got dogs galore. I can't remember when you met Parsnip, but she's a sweet dog. But Humphrey is obviously old gent. For those that obviously can't see them, they're probably in my room somewhere. But they're both golden retrievers, and Humphrey's a real old gent who honestly doesn't bat an eyelid. And I took him down to read to nursery the other day, and 15 children climbed all over him, and he didn't even move. Whereas Parsnip's a bit more of a character. She's very soft and gentle, but she ends up in the kitchen and the dining room more than my office, actually. Any opportunity to explore the site. But no, children have loved having them around. So that's been very good. And the staff too. The number of times that people walk past the dogs, any of the dogs at the school, and just have a moment, 30 seconds of it, bit of a gentle chat and a stroke, and away they go feeling a bit better about themselves. So it's all very nice.
What would you describe as the greatest success you've had in your time surviving the pandemic?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one, isn't it? There are a few things, and I talk to people a lot about this. As a head of an independent school, you're judged on a number of things. Clearly you get judged on numbers and how things are going there, and I'm really proud of how we've grown as a school. It's a sign of a school that's going pretty well if you're growing nicely. So I'm proud of that, but I'm equally proud of the news with Charterhouse, which is that's a big statement. Charterhouse is a fantastic, prestigious school, highly regarded school around the world, and we are now merging with them, and that's a really good and positive step for the future for Edgeborough. But if I'm really honest, that whilst those two things I'm proud of, the most pride I've ever had in my time at Edgeborough came fairly early on. About a year in, we had a new prospectus being created and sort of website content. And there was a chap who came to take photos and interview people and talk while he was putting together the prospectus. And he asked one of the children what had changed most in my time, in my first year. And the children said that we were a bit of a kinder school. We spoke about kindness more. We treated each other more kindly. And that, as you probably know, is one of my sort of core messages. So to hear that coming back, indirectly from someone who, the children didn't know from Adam, that was, for me, that was the moment where I thought, okay, we're having some proper success now. We're really making a difference. And that's the one I will always fall back on, because in the end, as a head, you're there for the community, you're there for the staff, but you're there for the pupils more than anyone. And if they're saying that it's a kinder school, then something's going well.
Obviously, we've bumped into each other before now in Cornwall.
Yes.
But I do know, and I'm very aware that you came from, I'm not quite sure how to say it. Is it St Petrox?
Yeah, St Petrox, yeah.
St Petrox in Cornwall. How would you compare, I know that we've talked about it in person before, your time there to kind of moving to Surrey and working in a prep school in Surrey, and obviously moving to an even bigger school?
Yeah, it's I loved St Petrox. I mean, it's chalk and cheese to Edgeborough or to Millfield or anywhere else. I mean, it was an idyllic little school, but we're talking tiny. It was 50 pupils in the prep school from reception to year 6. It was I know it sounds cliche, but it was a little family. It was amazing, and our children were very happy there. It was set 500 meters from some of the best beaches in the country. I was probably the only head in the land who was taking a surfing activity on a Tuesday afternoon at 3:30. But with that sort of small school, I mean, I can't honestly say that I was a genuine head there, because I had to do so many other things. I was a head, I was a teacher, I was a groundsman, a minibus driver, plumber. There were two men on site, and we did everything. From marking the rugby pitches and athletics track to fixing things when they broke. So I got such an amazing experience of what every job in a school in sort of one. I was the Swiss Army knife of headmasters at that stage, but it wasn't genuine headship, because I just didn't have time to do the things that I'm doing now. And you compare them, and scale is one thing, but just the ability now to have a team under me and numbers to give me time to think about strategy and to get involved with things that aren't the day-to-day running of the school. It makes a huge difference. But I have massively fond memories. I just didn't get any sleep at all down there. It was just endless things to fix. But it was a great little school.
Perhaps what's made you the headmaster that you are now, through having that hands-on experience.
I hope so. I do feel that it's funny, isn't it? You learn from everything, and I've always been like that. No matter what job I've done, even pre-teaching. I was a milkman for a bit, and you pick up stuff from whatever job you're doing. And I genuinely felt when I came to Edgeborough, and St Petrox is a great little school, but it was really struggling financially. It was teetering on the brink, and to bring that experience and to come to a school that's in a very affluent area here and going well, but to be able to say, come on a minute, guys, you pupils as well as staff, you're leaving the lights on, and if we all leave the lights on as we walk out of a room, you're burning energy, you're burning money, you're wasting the planet's resources. Down in Cornwall, though, literally everything was valuable and precious. And I think that was a really good lesson for me, stepping up here, and it's probably something I'm taking with me wherever I go now. That understanding that we're very lucky to be working in great schools, and we just need to appreciate it.
However, I think everyone would give their right arm for the location.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's glorious down there, absolutely amazing. Stunning North Cornwall. You know it well as well, don't you? You know.
Yeah, we spent about a third of the year there. Yeah. Now, obviously, it's been announced. There's been big press releases. I think we featured it in our spring edition of the magazine. Edgeborough merging with Charterhouse. What inspired this, and how do you feel it's going to benefit the children going forwards? Obviously, you played a very large role in the merge.
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge, exciting time for Edgeborough and for Charterhouse, actually. But it took a long time. It was pre-pandemic that we started discussions, and as you well know, there's been some fairly significant change at Charterhouse anyway, with Alex Peterkin arriving, and going fully co-ed and those sort of things. So actually,
I actually remember you one of the times I visited saying the big news is girls are going to Charterhouse.
that did, almost overnight, made it a much closer fit to Edgeborough. And I sense that, actually we've always had a very good relationship, very close relationship with Charterhouse. But the moment you are, moving to becoming a co-ed school, and as we know, Edgeborough, fully co-ed for, best part of 30 years, the alignment was almost immediate there. And even before any of the merger talk started, Edgeborough parents were starting to look at Charterhouse in huge numbers because of that change. So it's been a really interesting and enjoyable journey so far. And the merger officially starts in September, and the benefits are both ways. I mean, clearly, I mentioned it earlier. To be associated and to be partnered with a name like Charterhouse is fantastic. It's got enormous credentials, and I've used this example a lot to my parents here and to others. When I first arrived at Edgeborough, and I said this, quite honestly to my staff, first day, first inset session, when I arrived as a new head, I wanted Edgeborough to be the prep school of choice in the local area. That was my target, and I think, hand on heart, we can say we've done pretty well. We're pretty close to being that. If I'd have come in on my first day and said I want Edgeborough to be the best prep school in the country, I think most people would have laughed at me and told me I was a bit mad. But being now associated with a name like Charterhouse, which has unashamed ambition to be the best independent school in the land, that leaves us as Edgeborough with massive potential. That the sky is literally the limit, and it will work both ways. I mean, we know full well already from our relationship over the last few months that cross sort of fertilization of children from Charterhouse coming over and being able to work with some of the younger pupils. I mean, that's going to be fantastic for them, and equally, obviously, our guys being able to go over there and make use of incredible facilities and sort of more specialist teaching at the top end. It's full of potential and very exciting, and actually pretty sad for me to be going just at the time where this is all really kicking off.
Just talk me through. So will Edgeborough continue through to 13? Will the intention be that the children stay with you right the way through and then transition in year 8 to Charterhouse, or will some children be able to go earlier than that?
No, it's a very standard and in fact very little change. We'll continue to be a school all the way up to 13, and while many children from Edgeborough will go on to Charterhouse, it's not a sort of unique relationship there. We are sending children to all the schools we have always done. So your Wellingtons and Cranleys and Lord Wandsworth and RGS and all those schools around us that we send many people to, all the girls' schools around in Guildford. Those relationships will still remain very strong. But what we probably envisage actually is a bit of a growth at the top end of Edgeborough, as those families that are selecting Charterhouse at 13 plus, maybe they'll be in a prep school in London that finishes at 11. We may well find we're expecting
You're an interim
growth in that year 7 and 8 area,
which you've got the space for.
Exactly.
Yeah, I can see that, because obviously with the girls, in many cases, there's a massive 11 plus intake.
Yeah, and that's the sort of the demographics around here and the market of the independent schools that we've got around us. There are some fantastic schools, there really are, and many of those, and some of them being girls' schools, will take predominantly at year 7. And in fact, we've been a school that feeds to, we've fed to 40 schools in the last 10 years, and that they will go at 11 or at 13. But I would imagine that, as I say, what's going to happen is we will still continue to send some children to their senior schools at 11 plus, and then we'll probably get an intake. So I would imagine our year 7, 8 will grow slightly.
Be a bit more transient.
Yeah.
And will children from Edgeborough be guaranteed places at Charterhouse, or will they still sit some entrance procedure?
The entrance procedure is exactly the same. So there's no sort of guaranteed place, and I think it's really important that both schools have that. Retain a bit of that independence. You know, no one, just because you come to Edgeborough doesn't mean you're guaranteed a place at Charterhouse. I think, as is likely, it's, you know, the natural relationship will be that more children will go to Charterhouse, just by the fact that we're linked. But you know, you're certainly not going to guarantee yourself a place just by getting yourself into Edgeborough. But I think that's pretty standard actually across most of the mergers that seem to be happening in the sector at the moment. Is trying to work together, but also retain a little element of that independence, which makes prep schools so successful.
Obviously, the other news is that you're going to remain at Edgeborough through to Christmas, but then will become head teacher at Millfield.
Yeah, so
in Somerset.
Yeah, Millfield Prep, and that was a bit of a bolt out of the blue. You've got to be honest, and I think everyone here and obviously Emmy, my wife, and the children and the dogs, we really weren't expecting to be leaving Edgeborough so soon. But it's, you know, as I've said to everyone, a fantastic opportunity in a part of the world that I and we as a family know and love very much. And you know, my folks are in Frome in Somerset, which is half an hour away from Millfield, and my sister's got her family and her 5 children. You know, their cousins are very close. They're down in Tiverton at Blundell's. So
I spoke to Blundell's this morning.
So it's, you know, in terms of opportunity, you know, a school like Millfield doesn't come up very often, and you know, you've got to take these opportunities in life. And whilst we're genuinely very sad to be leaving Edgeborough at a time, as I've just said, that's so exciting in the school's history and so much good happening, and you know, lots of hard work being ploughed in for the last four and a bit years. But you know, when a chance like that comes up, if you get offered it, which I was, you know, very very lucky to have been offered, you take it. And yeah, we're excited. I think there's a bit of time to run yet, so I'm pleased to be working with Alex and Charterhouse for the term up till Christmas, and then I start in January.
What legacy then do you hope to leave behind at Edgeborough?
I think what I really hope is that Edgeborough is a vibrant, happy, friendly school. That you know, and I think it is that. I think it's always been a happy and a friendly school, and I think it's always been pretty busy. But we certainly feel like we're buzzing at the moment. You know, we're in great nick in terms of pupil numbers at the high, and we're going well. And I just hope that when I go, that you know, that the sort of element that we've created in the lovely family feel and the kindness, as I mentioned earlier, that's something I feel very passionately about. And I think that if nothing else, if the school is still full of nice, happy, friendly children who treat each other well, then I've done something right.
And as headmaster, what was the most rewarding part of your role to date? Obviously, because you've been a head.
Yeah, I think headship's an interesting one. I mentioned earlier, you know, that there aren't, particularly in the middle of a pandemic, there aren't many things that, as a head, when things are going badly, there aren't many things that sort of make you proud of what you're doing, because you've got so much pressure to get it right for every pupil and every family in the school. But you do get these, you know, wonderful moments every now and again where you realise that all of that hard work that you and your team and your staff around you have put in, when you get an ex-pupil, let's say, or an ex-parent who comes back and talks to you about school and about how fondly they think school and how it set them up for their life or their career or their senior school, whatever they talk about. When you get children coming back and saying that and saying they had the best times of their life in the school that you've run, that really does make it worthwhile, because that, you know, then you've had a long-lasting impact. I look back on my prep school days, and funny enough, I was out, you know, when we were allowed back in the pub recently, I was out with a friend who ended up being a parent here, actually, and we went to prep school together, and we talked about our prep school days, and we massively fond of them, and that's 40 odd years on, or nearly 40 years on, and that, I think, Ed, having the knowledge that you have really helped set children up on their journey of education in the right way, that's massively rewarding.
Yeah. Many parents trying, obviously it's an ongoing thing, but many parents trying to decide what schools to send their children to. Do you have any advice for a parent who may be slightly unsure or finding the process quite daunting?
I think, and this is pretty cliche, and you'll hear it from lots of heads. I think going with your gut is really important. There are a few things to consider when you're picking a school, and one is obviously logistics. There's no point picking a school that feels wonderful if it's 500 miles in the wrong direction, and you're not going to be able to spend the time you want there. But assuming you've got the sort of the basics and the logistics sorted, there are so many good schools, and you're highly unlikely to make a bad choice. But if you follow what your gut says, you're likely to be happy with your choice. And the number of times I say to parents that you come and look around Edgeborough, feel what it's like. If it doesn't feel right for you, then we're not going to force it on you. You've got to know that what you're looking at for your children is reflected not just in what the head is saying or the staff are saying, but in what you see the children around in the school doing, what you hear other people talking about the school, and that in the end it does come down to that gut feel. You will know if it feels right, and if it does, you listen to that, and don't be too swayed by other people. I mean, we talk at length to parents about their future school choices, and it's so easy for them to be persuaded by where their child's friend is going, or what other families are talking about.
I always call it coffee table politics. It's kind of.
You've got to go with what works for you as a family, and for your children as individuals. And if you focus on that and forget the coffee table chat, you'll be probably making the right decision.
And to finish off, how just thinking about, when you look out of your window, and I don't think you can generalize massively, but what qualities do you think would sum up a typical Edgeborough child?
Well, at the moment, a very wet and Edgeborough child. He's terrific. But I think most Edgeborough pupils they just love getting stuck into stuff. So they're full of beans, full of life. That whole, the politeness that goes with high standards, but polite, kind, full of energy, willing to give things a go. That's what we're all about here. We want children to try stuff, and I'd far rather children try to tiddlywinks or dance or chess or whatever it is, and not enjoy it, but then try something else and keep going down that road until they find what they like. And that's sort of what we've built here. We've got children that will give everything a go, and they're full of life, full of beans, as I say. And that's and the main thing is that they, hopefully most of the time, they've got a big smile on the face. That's what it's all about.
Except for the day that you decide to do a picnic.
Yeah, there were some sort of strained grins as we tried to take pictures of them enjoying their picnics in the rain. But no, most of the time they're pretty natural with their smiles.
Yeah, no, well, thank you so much, Dan, for your time. I know how incredibly busy you are, and we're definitely very thrilled about the merge with Charterhouse, and obviously congratulations on your new role.
That's very kind, and thank you so much for talking to me.
Thank you so much for listening, and thank you to Dan for the wonderful interview. Stay tuned for more episodes of the Education Corner podcast coming very soon.